everywhere. You're listening to United Liberals Podcast. Good morning. Today is Saturday, May 4th, and we have a pretty good show for you today. I think, we always actually have a good show, but I think today is particularly good. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of material to discuss, so I'm just going to jump right into it right away. I read this article this morning, actually, when I was having my coffee this morning. I took my dog out, and then I was having a cup of coffee, but it was about this Harvard professor, Niall Ferguson. I don't know if you know this guy, but apparently he is the Lawrence A. Tisch Professor of History at Harvard University, and what he said was, he's also an economist too. I don't know. He's a history professor, but he's also an economist, so I don't know. What he was saying was John Maynard Keynes, the famous liberal economist that is always a target of the right. The right just loves to demonize this guy. I mean, he's been dead now for years, but the right just loves to demonize this guy because he's a liberal. He's a liberal and he says liberal things, so therefore anything he says is invalid and wrong, and I'm not an economist. I've never been an economist, but I'll tell you, John Maynard Keynes, he's wrong. Even though I don't know anything about the economy, I have an opinion on something I know nothing about. But, so this guy, this Niall Ferguson guy, says that John Maynard Keynes is homosexual, he's gay, so therefore he doesn't have any children, and therefore his theories on economics are somehow invalid. Yes, because he doesn't have any children, this economist, and by the way, Niall Ferguson is not an economist. I'm pretty sure he's not an economist. It says he's the Lawrence A. Tisch Professor of History. So this historian is saying that an economist is his thoughts, his research, they're invalid because he's gay. This is insane. It's insanity that these guys, but this is what the right does. This is what they do. This is what they do with every policy position they have. This is what they do. This is their MO. This is how they operate. They say things like, well, this guy he's gay, so therefore his viewpoints are invalid. I haven't looked at any of the research, but it's invalid because he's gay. He's a gay guy, so how could his research be valid? Of course, the Ivy League schools probably shouldn't be lecturing anyone on any type of economic policy, especially on the heels of the Reinhardt-Rogoff study. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, but it's been in the news recently. These two economists, Reinhardt and Rogoff, they set out to prove that if you have debt levels higher than 90% of GDP, your growth rates will slow down. And, of course, this has been what the Republicans have been citing because Obama is a tax and spender. He's come into our office and he's ruined everything that was so wonderful under George W. Bush. Everything is Obama's fault because debt levels are higher than 90% of GDP. Well, it turns out that a graduate student actually looked at the data as part of a class project, this Reinhardt-Rogoff study, and he found out that they had actually omitted columns or rows in a column of this data. And they also cherry-picked the data as well. They didn't include Canada, New Zealand, Australia, countries that I think have growth rates. They had growth, I believe, after World War II, but somehow they were omitted from the study because, that didn't fit their argument. That didn't make their argument valid. So what they had actually found out is if you corrected the error that they had in the spreadsheet, because they were missing columns of data, if you corrected this error and you actually included countries like Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, countries that had high levels of debt to GDP ratio after World War II but still saw moderate growth rate, you actually take you take the study, and what would be countries that have 90% of debt to GDP in the original Reinhardt-Rogoff study were showing that they had a negative 1.1% growth rate. If you correct the errors and add Canada, New Zealand, and Australia into the mix like they should be added in, you actually see a 2.2% growth rate. That's a big deal. That's the difference between a recession and growth. But the Republicans have been citing this study, and I know it's not the Republicans' fault because these economists have put this paper out and the paper was wrong. But no one's issued an apology yet on this. Oh, I don't know. But anyway, so you've got this guy, this Ferguson guy, and he's at Harvard. He's saying gay people aren't good at economics, or I don't know what his point is, but he's making these allegations that, John Maynard Keynes is a homosexual. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know if Keynes is actually gay. Because Keynes was married. He had a wife. He was married to a ballerina. They just didn't have any children. But apparently, if you don't have any children, you don't care about the future. So if all you people out there listening, if you don't have any children, you don't care about the future, according to this professor, Niall Ferguson. So speaking of the future, Steve King in Iowa, big news, announced he's not running for Senate. He's not going to run for the Senate because he's got more important things to do in the House. And of course, the House doesn't do anything. They never do anything. They repeal Obamacare. They did that 36 times. And Eric Cantor now came out, the House Majority Leader, and he said, look, we expect the House. We don't have a date yet. We haven't set a timeline, but of course the House is going to vote to repeal Obamacare again because why not? Why not? They've gerrymandered the districts so much that it doesn't matter if they don't do anything because no one's going to hold them accountable because the districts are so skewed towards the Republican side now that it doesn't matter if they don't do anything or they don't produce. You have to remember, the Republican Party in this country, the conservatives, have morphed into this nonsensical fantasy party where if you're opposed to government, I don't think government should do anything, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. That's their attitude. That's an entire political party, a major political party, I might add, in this country. Their entire premise is they wish they weren't in Washington. Well, guess what? We all wish you weren't in Washington either. So maybe the Republicans should just do everyone a favor and go home and go away. But Steve King, he's going to stay in the House, and he's going to continue to pretend to repeal Obamacare, because that's more important than running for the Senate. And, I don't know. King would have lost if he ran in the Senate. I don't know. That's unfair of me to say that. I don't know if King would have lost, because I don't put anything past this country. They will vote. They voted for, they voted for George Bush twice. What do I know? I don't know anything, Maybe King would have won. Maybe Senator Steve King would have been able to go and represent the people of Iowa. But we won't know because he's not going to run now. So, one guy that might run for higher office is Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is possibly going to run for higher office. And I know what you guys are thinking, like, Ted Cruz for president? Wasn't that guy born in Canada? Well, you're right. He was born in Canada. But you know what? Birtherism, that doesn't matter for Republicans. That only matters for Democrats that weren't born in this country. So, Ted Cruz, I'm sure there'll be a group that emerges, the birthers for Ted Cruz, Obama birthers for Ted Cruz, which would be hilarious because he's already getting the questions. I saw the other day, I caught a segment, he was on the Hannity show. And, of course it came up that he's actually not American, he's Canadian. And Cruz said, that's for the people to determine. Well, maybe he should take a look at the people, because if you want the people determining that, the people probably shouldn't be determining that if you want to be president, Senator Cruz. But, again, the hypocrisy on the right runs rampant. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say. But Ted Cruz considering a run for president. And, of course, Ted Cruz was one of the people that were invited to speak at the NRA convention this weekend. The NRA had a big convention in Dallas, Texas. Houston, Texas is where they actually had this convention. So, NRA has a convention. Of course, they lined up a virtual who's who of who will never be president. Sarah Palin was there, of course, because, what else is she going to do? This is what she does. She doesn't have a real job. I saw the tea baggers up in Alaska they have the draft Sarah Palin movement going on up in Alaska. They want to draft her for Senate. The tea baggers up there in Alaska should know that Sarah Palin is a grifter. She doesn't actually want a real job. She just wants to give off the illusion that she's going to get a real job. And anyway, why would Palin run for Senate? Why would she want to go and be a junior senator from Alaska in a state? First off, the term for Senate is 6 months, or 6 years. She couldn't even do a 4-year term as governor in Alaska. How is she going to do a 6-year term all the way in D.C.? But no, nonetheless, the teabaggers are drafting Sarah Palin for Senate because Mark Begich, the Democrat up there, of course, voted against the background checks. And, listen, if Mark Begich thinks he's going to get cover from Republicans in Alaska, that they're going to protect him, he should probably read up on the Blanche Lincoln re-election bid because, these teabaggers, they're not going to vote for Democrats. That's not what they do. They don't care. They're going to vote for Republicans. They don't care about policy. They don't care about it. So they're not going to reward Senator Mark Begich for voting for their cause because they don't care. But anyway, so the NRA has this convention, and Wayne LaPierre, our good buddy Wayne LaPierre, he spoke at the convention, obviously. He gave the keynote, I guess, opening address, you would call it. And, of course, he went right on the attack. He attacked Obama because Obama's coming for your guns. He's coming. He's going to get your guns. And by the way, buy guns. Buy more guns because Obama's going to take all the guns off the shelf. Buy guns. Buy gold. Buy fluoride kits. Isn't it funny? Did you ever notice that every time that Obama's going to do something evil to us, that these right-wing hucksters, these shysters on the right, these Wayne LaPierres, the Glenn Becks, the Alex Joneses, they always have a product that you can buy that will protect you and your family from whatever evil thing that Obama is about to do. Obama's going to take your guns. By the way, I have a gun protection kit for sale on my website, only $19.95. So just head on over to alexjones.com and get yourself a fluoride kit, a fluoride water filter. If the government poisons water, or the government's going to collapse the economy, head on over to glennbeck.com and get yourself a Glenn Beck Gold Kit for $49.95. That's their MO. That's what they do. They are snake oil salesmen. They go around the country and they create panic and fear among elderly people and people who don't pay attention to the news, and then they try to sell them crap they don't need. I wonder how Glenn Beck's gold purchases are working out. Gold, I don't know if you saw, gold actually dropped precipitously over the course of the last few weeks. There was a drop in global gold demand. It was trading at about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was up, I think, up almost over $1,700 an ounce. It was close to $1,700 an ounce, and it plummeted down below $1,400 an ounce. Is a record drop in gold prices. And of course, Glenn Beck is, he's the gold man. He's the gold guy. Gold Line, that's the company that he promotes with his Buy Glenn Beck Gold, because the government and Ben Bernanke are going to print dollars into oblivion. But that's what they do. So, and the NRA, they have their convention. Good for them. They have their convention. That's fine, whatever. And that's the beauty of it. That's their First Amendment right. You get to go and you get to talk about different things that you're passionate about and organize and politically motivate your base and do those things. And that's what the NRA is doing. They're doing it right there in Houston, and they're exercising it. Now, they're not being beaten over the head with clubs like the protesters that were trying to exercise their First Amendment right in Seattle. I don't know if you saw that during the May Day protests in Seattle. But that's different because that's the First Amendment. So the First Amendment, that doesn't really matter as much as the Second Amendment. Your right to carry an AR-15 into the McDonald's is not as protected as my First Amendment right to be like, I don't think we should have guns in a McDonald's, because that's tyranny. When I say things like that, that's you're being a tyrant. You're being a liberal tyrant when you say that, you know, we should probably ban guns. There was a study that was just put out, and 29% of people surveyed believe that armed revolution is necessary. 29%, that's almost a third of the people that were surveyed. Armed revolution, you know, it's coming. Because, you know, Obama, he's trying to give me health care, so I'm going to overthrow the government. That's the thing with these gun nuts. They're like, we love the Constitution so much, we love it so much that we have to destroy the government with our AR-15s in order to protect the Constitution. What if a bunch of leftist socialists in this country wanted to start carrying AR-15s in public? What would their response to that be? What would they say to that? I can just imagine Wayne LaPierre being like, well, you know, we can't have socialists carrying guns in public because they'll want to overthrow the government and then implement their policies, because that's what we want to do. We want to overthrow the government and implement our policies. But we're the good guys, because we carry AR-15s. We're open carry. You know, we're going to protect the Constitution. These socialists, they're not going to protect any Constitution. They want to ruin the Constitution. You know, and of course, you know, everyone's a Nazi, and it's, you know, Obama's a Nazi, and he's a Muslim, and he's a socialist because, you know, he's a Nazi and he's a communist. He's a Nazi and he's a communist, probably because these people don't know what Nazis and communists are. You know, they just heard this phrase. They've heard, oh, Obama's a Nazi. Yeah, he's a Nazi. That's, of course he is. Well, he's also communist. Well, do you know that Nazism, that fascism is actually juxtaposed to communism? And then they go, what? No, Obama's a Nazi communist. And it's like they don't care. You know, it's just they hear Sean Hannity or Glenn Beck or Bill O'Reilly. They hear them say something on Fox News, or they read it on the Drudge Report or Infowars.com, and then they repeat it at work, and they go into work and they say things like, oh, well, Obama's a Hitler Muslim socialist, you know, because he covered up Benghazi. That's the big thing they're on now, cover-ups. Obama's covering everything up. Everything is an elaborate cover-up. Sandy Hook is fake. You know, and this goes way back. This is deep fringe stuff. These guys, these are our 9/11 truthers. These are guys that are coming out of the woodwork, the Alex Jones 9/11 truthers. They think the Boston bombing was fake. They think Sandy Hook was fake. They think 9/11 is fake. They think the government, you know, it's funny because with these baggers, these teabaggers on the right, they think the government is completely incompetent. They can't do anything right, so they shouldn't have to do anything because they can't do anything right. But they're also conducting and organizing these mass conspiracies to promote the New World Order. Listen, folks, either the government can't do stuff, it's so incompetent that it can't do anything, or it's running complex global conspiracies. You can't have two of the same things. I guess if you don't believe in logic, I guess that can be true. But, you know, these baggers, these teabaggers, they, you know, it's Ted Cruz. You know, Ted Cruz is one of these guys. He wants to run for president. He thinks that the UN, the United Nations, is what was it? I think it was Think Progress, or maybe it was Mother Jones. I can't remember. One of those blogs, one of those websites. They had the 5 things that you need to know about Ted Cruz, and we'll look it up and we'll get it back to you. But the 5 things that you need to know about Ted Cruz, and one of them was he thinks that George Soros, not Warren Buffett, George Soros. And the United Nations are in cahoots together to perpetuate global warming in an effort to shut down golf courses in the United States. Ted Cruz believes this. I mean, he thinks that the UN and George Soros are trying to shut down American golf courses. How do these guys how do they believe this? How do these guys get elected, I think is what we should ask. And Ted Cruz is not a dummy. That's, he's a teabagger, but he's not a dummy, because he was the Solicitor General. He's a Harvard grad, gay Harvard, up there with Niall Ferguson, where they teach gay economics. Ted Cruz went to Harvard. He's a smart guy. He's a very intelligent guy. He was the Solicitor General of Texas, but he's a politician, and he's a teabagger. So he has to appeal. He has to talk about the black helicopters and the UN New World Order that's going to shut down your golf course, and George Soros. And I don't even know why they're talking about this. How did that even come up? How did it even come up in context that Ted Cruz is going to someone asked that question? How did that even come up? I don't know. And there's a whole list of them. I mean, Steve King is one of those guys. You've got, they're everywhere. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, all of these guys. They're like a giant internet comment section. That's what they are. They're like a giant internet comment section. They're like a live, real, if you go into YouTube and you read the crazy videos, the comments and the videos that people leave there, it's something with hate and insanity and it's just crazy stuff. And that's Ted Cruz is the living embodiment of that. So, yeah, but I guess, I don't know. On some bright news, we have some good news, actually. Obama nominated a new transportation secretary. Guy's name's Charlotte Mayor. His name's Anthony Fox. He's the mayor for 4 years. He was on the city council of Charlotte before that. And the guy doesn't really have a big track record of getting big transportation things done. He built an airport runway. He got a light rail built. And Charlotte isn't exactly a public transportation haven, so I'm not really sure what this guy's qualifications are or why he got the job. But I wanted Antonio Villagrosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles, because I thought that guy, he is the guy that's going to get the job done. He's got a good background. Los Angeles is a traffic nightmare. If you've ever been to Los Angeles, it's a nightmare to try to drive there. But Villagrosa, LA had this huge project that they did. It was an effort to sync all 4,500 of the traffic lights throughout the city. And they did this. They got this job done. It took them 20 years and, billions of dollars. But basically it uses historical data tracking patterns to anticipate what levels of traffic are going to be in certain locations. And then you can actually create a historical context of when the lights should sync and how the traffic should move. And it's a fantastic project, and it's something that we should be doing in every city. But, of course, we're not because, private industry will do it. We don't need some government bureaucrat telling me when I can stop and drive my car. Leave it to the free market. Why even have stoplights? Stoplights are tyrannical. There's nothing in the Constitution that says I have to stop at a red light. Well, okay. All right, we're way off tangent here, but we really want to talk about that. Niall Ferguson, story, which is ridiculous. John Maynard Keynes is gay, so therefore his economic policies are invalid. Steve King is not running for the Senate. Ted Cruz might be running for president. Eric Cantor is going to repeal Obamacare again. We've got a new transportation secretary, Anthony Fox, former mayor of Charlotte. The NRA held a convention, and 29% of their participants believe, 29% of people in a survey believe armed revolution is necessary. And that is your United Liberals podcast for Saturday, May 4th. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back later. Bye.